Hello, I just came up with a new dish that I really like and I thought I would share it with you. So here's what we've got. It's going to be pasta with a sauce of chicken breast and mushrooms with walnuts in a rosemary ginger cream sauce with nutmeg. And then we're going to garnish it with carrots right near the end, so they're a little bit cooked but not very much. And I've got garlic and shallot as my flavor bases. Then at the end I'm going to take my hunk of frozen lemon juice and whittle some off. That will add a bright spark at the end. And I will be putting in some white wine and cooking it off and using chicken broth as the liquid. Then we have salt and pepper. So that's it. I think there's 13 ingredients. Let's see. Oh, and then Parmesan on the end. Okay, so pasta, then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 ingredients plus salt, pepper, and Parmesan. Okay, here we go. Now I have to scoot over and give me some room. These happen at the stove. And you got to be careful about your cross-contamination since I have fresh or raw meat here, but if you watch, I'll be careful. Alright, first let's get some rosemary. Can you see what I'm doing? Hope so. I'm going to scoot you over here. Zoom in a little bit. Can I zoom? I can zoom. Okay, here we go. So, in case you haven't seen it, a nutmeg, there's a story about that. I get my spices from Penzeys, P-E-N-Z-E-Y-S. They are family owned out of Milwaukee. They're a mail order spice company. And they now have stores that are opening around the country. And their spices don't cost any more than the stuff in the grocery store, but they're way better. And their catalog used to teach you all sorts of fabulous things about spices, but they quit doing that so much, and now they do something else. Okay. So, I'll tell you the story of a nutmeg in case you don't know it. So there's this fruit that's kind of like a peach that when it gets ripe it splits open the way, you know, a pistachio does. So it does that. And inside it has a pit, and there are these tendrils that wrap around the pit like that. And they're bright red. They're the brightest red known to man, according to the Penzeys catalog, what they used to say. And so what they do is they take the fruit and they, watch what I'm doing. One of these is going to be slices and one of them is going to be dices because I like the variety in my shape. Okay, so they take the fruit and they take the little tendrils off and they put them in a pile over there, and then they they throw the fruit away, or they make chutney out of it, or they do something. And then they take the pit and let it dry out. And when you're finished, the dried pit is a nutmeg. And the dried tendrils aren't so bright red anymore. They are now kind of a dark orange. And that is mace. So, when you're baking, nutmeg and mace grew up together. They come from the same plant, and they can kind of substitute for each other if you need them to. And freshly grated nutmeg has a way better taste. That's wonderful, and you will like it, as opposed to the stuff that comes out of a can, which is probably something you're fairly indifferent to or don't even like. So, another thing to know about nutmeg is that it aids digestion. So it's used in dishes that are very rich, such as fettuccine alfredo. Fettuccine alfredo is heavy cream, butter, and Parmesan. You can't get any more rich than that. So traditionally you grate a bunch of fresh nutmeg into it, and that helps you aid your digestion. So when I came up with this and I decided the basic goal of this dish was I wanted to have pasta, but I was sick of tomato sauce. What else could I do? So I'm doing this. And once I came up with my liquid being not coming from tomatoes anyway, then I used chicken broth because that's always a good flavor background and it gives you the liquid. And then I put in cream, and once I put in heavy cream I thought, oh well, let's aid digestion by putting in some fresh nutmeg. Then the thing to know about fresh ginger is it's lovely and wonderful, and also ginger is really good for you. And it brings a kind of heat. I don't like hot peppers, so if I'm going to put heat in something, doing ginger is a good way to go at it, because then I won't get all fussy. But it just has a nice warmth, and the quality of ginger is that it warms your internal organs. So when you get sick and you are, like I was recently, you're sick for a week and it's all about cough syrup and what have you, someone showed me to make a kind of a hot lemonade. If you do hot water with steep some ginger in it, and then add lemon juice, because that's good for your cold, and then sweeten it with honey. The combination of lemon and honey works, and the ginger works, and they all work. I, however, made mine so strong I had a hard time drinking it, but that's another problem. So that's why you don't want to get sick, because it's just not fun no matter what you do. Okay, working on the little carrots. I'll get back to that garlic in a minute. I just realized I missed it. Okay, now the carrots, something to know about health stuff is that the things that actually repair your body, like your things that aren't working right, like a sore elbow or some sort of persistent issue that you have, the things that actually repair your body are called enzymes. And enzymes do not occur in animals, they only occur in plants, which means they're in your fruits and vegetables. And they die when you cook them. So, the more you can figure out how to eat your vegetables without cooking them so much, the better off you are. So I'm going to throw the carrots in right at the end, just give them a little touch of heat so they don't taste quite so raw, although I like them really raw. You can do it either way. Throw them in as a garnish if you want. That's what I've been doing lately with my tomato sauce, but this is my remedy to tomato sauce, so I'm doing it differently. You know, if you get too many ingredients on your cutting board, you get a really small workspace. Okay, so the smaller you cut garlic, the more pungent it is. Mine seems to be jumping off the cutting board. Oh, come on, smaller than that. And of course, walnuts they have protein. Nuts are good for you, and they give a crunch, because the crunch of a walnut never dies. No matter how much you cook it, it's still going to be crunchy. This is just a handful, probably, what is that, half a cup or so? I just reached in the bag and pulled out a handful. Also, nuts have some oils, I think, that are good for you. Not sure about that, but they've got protein. So you could do this as a completely vegetarian dish if you just left out the chicken, and I've done that. I had a sauce I did that was, I used chicken broth for the juicy part, and I used walnuts, garlic, shallot, a lot of what's here, ginger, and I did walnuts, spinach, and dried cranberries. And that was, sorry about that, my camera will not run forever. It only runs for about 9 minutes. Okay, so we know that took 9 minutes. That dish was really good. Okay, what do I have to cut? I have chicken. Now, this is, I used half of the chicken breast yesterday, and now I'm going to use the other half today. So, I'm doing it sliced about 1/4 of an inch thick. And if you like really long strips, well then cut an entire breast all the way across. This one got halved that way before. That was yesterday. Okay, the one problem I find with this dish so far is that it makes a lot. It makes enough to feed 2 people. But I'm just being a pig and eating 2 servings worth. Because it makes me happy. It kind of ends up cold by the time I finish it, but that's life. I'm a slow eater. Okay, it's time to go to the stove. Over we go to the stove. I'm shooting this real time so we can figure out later just exactly how long it takes to cook this thing. Okay, so let me put my knife down. My pasta, okay, it all is going to depend on how long it takes your pasta to cook. This is on medium. Do not go above medium. Do not heat the pan. Don't start with a cold pan, and do not heat the pan for more than about 2 minutes. Okay, this is the pasta that I'm using because all those little nooks and crannies will hold sauce. So I'm going to make sure that my... Can you see what I'm holding? Yep, here it is. If your sauce has nooks and crannies, if your pasta has nooks and crannies, then make sure that you give it enough sauce to play with. If you're going to do this with less chicken broth, there will be less sauce, and then you can use something like that, homemade fettuccine, which is terrific. Okay. So now you got to figure out how long it takes your pasta to cook and time everything so it ends at the same time, because the pasta will not wait around, but the sauce can. But it's a cream sauce, so you got to figure out. Don't do it forever. Okay, now over here where you can't see it, I'm putting some pasta in. Okay, pasta's in. This probably takes about 6 to 8 minutes to cook, which I think is about how long it's going to take me to run this dish. Oh, the ingredient you haven't seen so far is olive oil. Here's my olive oil. Okay, something to know about heat and ingredients. How do I tell you this story? Okay, so you know about a... Let me get my cutting board. Okay, so if you've ever heard the story about if you put a frog in a pan of boiling water, he will jump out. If you put a frog in a pot of cold water and you turn the temperature on, then the frog will stay in there and he'll end up cooking. The same thing happens with flavor. If you put something, if you put a solid ingredient into a liquid, that's not hot enough, and I know it. If you put, come on, if you put a solid ingredient into a hot liquid, the ingredient will keep its flavor inside itself. If you put a solid ingredient into a cold liquid and then they heat up together, the flavor will go out of the solid ingredient and into the cold ingredient, or into the liquid, which is how you make sage butter. If you ever want to do a sage butter sauce on pasta, you have to start with a cold pan and you put butter and sage leaves together and heat them up together, and then the flavor goes from the sage leaves into the butter. If you conversely start by melting butter and putting sage leaves into it, what you get is fried sage leaves and butter that tastes like butter and not like sage. Okay. That's also the principle behind chicken broth. When you make, I'm back. When you make chicken stock, you always start with cold water and put the chicken ingredients in that. Okay, so we're going to start with the shallots. The shallots and the mushrooms. And something to keep in mind is that garlic cooks faster than onions. If you ever see a recipe that says put the garlic and the onions in at the same time, and the onions are big and the garlic is little, that recipe is not something you should be trusting, because they will not cook the same. Now, when I tried this earlier this week, I screwed up because I let the pan sit empty for a long time, for like 5, maybe 8 minutes, because I was fussing around chopping, and the pan got really hot. So when I added the olive oil, it should shimmer. I didn't have this pan hot enough. The olive oil, when you pour it in, should shimmer, which tells you the pan's hot and the olive oil is ready to go as soon as it hits. If you pour the olive oil in sooner and let it heat up in the pan, like I did here, it's, you know, cooking the flavor and diminishing the oil, and I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so, although it wasn't hot enough to do much. Anyway, okay, so now we have to let the moisture cook out of the mushrooms. We're going to add the walnuts and the garlic later, and the thing to remember is they both cook pretty fast, but walnuts would take longer. I don't want to add them now or they'll burn, but they'll take longer to cook than the garlic. And what I did earlier this week when I really messed up is I had my pan too hot, I put in the olive oil, and I put the chicken in first. And what you get is chicken that's like leather and tasteless and no fun. So yesterday I tried this differently, and I'm cooking down the things that need time. This is the stuff that needs time to cook. Then, when it's kind of started up, I'm going to put the walnuts and the garlic in a pile in the middle. And this layer will act like a trivet, and then the garlic and walnuts will act like a little mountain in the middle, and I'll put the chicken on top of that. And that'll let the chicken kind of steam and get used to being warm for a while before it hits the pan. And when I did that yesterday, I had chicken that tasted very juicy and tender. So, I'm thinking that's a good thing. Now, what do I have on my cutting board? I still have rosemary, walnuts, garlic, carrot, and chicken. When do I put in that rosemary? Well, let's think about it. Rosemary is a member of the pine family. If you use it too much, you will get that astringent quality that you find in pine sol, which is, of course, not a lot of fun. But that means it's got oils in it. And if the oils cook in this, that might bring their flavor out. If I cook it too long, it'll burn it. Something to remember about black pepper is black pepper can burn. So you want to pay attention to when it is you put it into a dish. If I put it in now and it's going to cook for a long time and fry and sizzle, that might not be too good for my pepper. I think I'll put him in later. Now, if I put my rosemary in now, will it overcook or will it not? I don't know. I think I'll put it in around the time I put in the chicken. Okay, let me go get my liquid. And I haven't figured out yet just how much of these liquids I'm using, because I was pouring them directly out of the containers. So tonight I put them in measuring cups, and after I pour them in I can see what's left over. Okay, while we're waiting, let's look at the ginger. The ginger is about 1.5 inches. Okay, sorry about that. I've been gone for 3 minutes. The camera ran out of capacity again. Okay, so now I see the mushrooms are getting a little bit brown, and they've shrunk. Okay, now we have the other stuff. I'm going to put the walnuts down in the middle, and the garlic on top, making a little mountain. Need my knife. Okay, and then the chicken on top of that. My new mountain method. Let me wash my hands. Okie doke. Now we can put in the rosemary, I think, also. Darn it, that knife needs to be washed. Okay. Back to the ginger. Okay, ginger is, as you can see, about 1.5 inches across, and how far until I get to that little finger part? It's an inch. It's 1 inch to that little brown piece right there. Okay, let's see how much of this I end up putting in. Now I use a microplane grater because it gives you the most lovely, really gentle shreds. This is the fine grater, and those things will just melt in and you will never find the shred. You will only find the flavor it left behind. And I really like it. Also, something I love about this, you know, if you slip, a grater will cut you. I have slipped and cut myself on this, but you know what? It does such a shallow cut. It took off the top layer of skin but did not go deep enough to hit the layer where the blood vessels are. So it really does a very shallow cut, which was good news the day I slipped. Okay, so how far did I go? I did the whole finger. So that was probably 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, and you take the back of your pinky, and it's really good if you have long nails. This is one of the times they're a benefit. And get that stuff out of there. Okay, next is the nutmeg. Here's our friend the nutmeg. So grate him too, another thing to be doing on your fine grater. They do make a really small grater that's specifically for spices. I haven't purchased that because this seems to work just fine. Okay, so you saw I started with a whole nutmeg. Some nutmegs are bigger than others. This was sort of a medium size. I'm trying to wear my grater evenly. It feels sharper at this end, probably because you can't get up there. I think I use the middle a lot, so I'm trying to do the rest now. Okay, I've used about half a nutmeg. See, not what it used to be. And they have that cool pattern in the middle, which is pretty neat. Okay, now I gotta get the nutmeg out. Alright, I'm gonna put those away. Okay, what else can I say while we're waiting? Oh, kind of screwed up here. So, I want to put wine in it, but cook it away because wine gives me a headache, but the flavor's nice. So you give yourself a splash of that. And of course, I did that at a point where the mushrooms were getting brown and I was going to have burning if I didn't do something. Okay. The stuff at the bottom needs to be turned. Okay. So now I've stirred in my chicken, but I'm trying to keep it on top because my intention was to cook the wine away before I put in my little mountain. Ah, well. Let's see how this works. So you see, the chicken's already kind of been getting cooked, just getting steamed. Okay, what was I talking about while we were waiting? Oh, Penzeys spices. Their spices are just way better than everybody else's, and as a testament, I'll tell you this story. So I've never had a bad recipe out of Fine Cooking magazine. They're really good, and when I once baked 12 different chocolate cakes to find the perfect recipe for chocolate cake, the winner was from Fine Cooking. And so I was reading it once, and they had an article on cooking with lemongrass, and I thought, well, I know nothing about that. I've never done it, never had it, so I better read the article. And the first thing it said is rule number 1 is always use fresh lemongrass, because dried lemongrass has no flavor unless you buy it from Penzeys. And that should tell you right there how good their spices are. You can sign up for the catalog, and they send you a lot of recipes in the catalog, and you can go online and do a lot of cool things with Penzeys. Okay, so now we have chicken that's kind of working on cooking, but everything else is pretty much cooked. Now I'm going to pour in broth. We'll figure out later how much that was. It was a cup and a half before I started pouring. It's quite a bit. Looks good. Okay. Then, when I put in the lemon juice, I want to do it right at the end. For instance, I'm using the same approach as a Italian restaurant I was in, that they made a pan-fried breaded veal chop that was fabulous, but I was in the kitchen and I saw what the chef did. At the very last moment, he took a hunk of lemon and he squeezed it over the cutlet. And when I ate the cutlet, it was bright and tender, and I kept thinking, man, what is that fabulous tang? I don't know what it is. It's great. Well, it was lemon juice. But you have to put it in at the end so it's still bright and not overcooked. And that is why I will be shaving off the lemon juice later, not right now. Okay, how's my pasta doing? Pasta is coming along. Okay, salt and pepper is clearly, there's no way that pepper is going to overcook at this point. I like pepper. Put it in there. Okay, salt. I'm a big salt person. But you don't know how much salt is in your broth. I found this brand that I really like. Haven't tried it before. Somebody in the grocery store said it was good, and sure enough it is. This kind. It's good. Imagine I got it at a organic co-op. They might have it at Whole Foods, but listen to the ingredients. Organic chicken broth, which is filtered water and organic chicken. Organic onions, organic celery, organic carrots, sea salt, natural chicken flavor, and organic spices. So that amounts to chicken, onion, celery, carrots, salt. That is a proper chicken broth. The other ones had things like dehydrated onion powder and turmeric for color. This doesn't have added colors because it's the color chicken broth is supposed to be. So, if it doesn't sound like something that should be in a normal chicken broth, I wouldn't buy it. Okay, something else I found is once you add cream to something, it starts to thicken after it sits there a couple minutes. So the goal here is to add the cream about 1 or 2 minutes before we're finished. Well, the camera ran out again. Alright, I've been gone for 5 minutes. So here we have saucy stuff. And now I'm going to put the cream in it. Whoops, how much cream do I put in? That's what I haven't figured out. Okay, this is 1/3 of a cup. Let's see if that's about what I do. Yep, that's 1/3 of a cup seems about what I've been doing. And I found that my cream has these lumps. First I thought, oh no, terrible lumps. Actually, they're really nice. I like those lumps. If I later find out that lumps are a bad thing and bad for you, well, okay. But right now, as far as I can figure out, that's butter. Okay. Now we're going to just grab a hunk of frozen lemon juice. Alright, let's get a new corner, this corner. And whittle some off. and then stick it back in the freezer. It works really great. Because you can't always keep a fresh lemon on hand. That can be kind of difficult. Now, the tangier you want your sauce, the more of this you should put in. The less tangy, less. Okay, so you saw the corner. What is that? 1 to 2 tablespoons, I would say. Okay. Next, you throw in the carrots. And we stir it up. We turn it off. We've had our pasta. We stir it up again. Okay, now I have to move you so you can see over here. Now you can tell that is more than one person should be eating. It's either 2 small servings or 1 big one. For a big guy, that might do it. And that's with half a chicken breast. If you did a whole chicken breast, you might have 2, plus, you know, use more or less pasta. There you are, and I promise you, that tastes good. Okay, that's my first food cooking video. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.